Okay, so our current inflation is painful, but is it intentional? So let's back up, and we know that we thought inflation was going to happen. We knew it because of the pandemic early on, but we didn't know that the pandemic nor inflation was going to be so etched in stone. And inflation is destabilizing. So it's going to create fear and anger and confusion for a lot of people, mostly fear and struggle. It's very painful, but here's the reality. Think of it this way: prices are like the market's air supply, not the group, although they're wonderful. I've seen them in concert, but also actual air supply. They signal surpluses and shortages, and prices tell businesses and consumers when to produce more and when to consume less. Think of it this way: inflation is a contamination to our natural air supply where we have more freedoms. And it's unsettling because it treats different people differently. If you're older and you invest it in bonds that say paid 3 to 4% interest, and now you see inflation jump to 5%, then you get clobbered. If you're a home buyer and you've locked in a mortgage at 2 to 5%, and we have inflation jump to 5%, and now you see home prices soaring, well, you scored great, right? So it's different for different people. But inflation is also a hidden tax. As wages rise to compensate for it, so does tax revenue, making it easier for the government to repay what it borrowed before inflation took off. This process robs the currency in people's wallets, and it lowers our purchasing power. The problem here is getting out of the pandemic is really tough, right? So we know that it's going to be around for a while. And getting out of inflation is incredibly unsettling because getting out of that is not only painful, but really the only way to get out of it is a recession, and a recession hurts everyone. So now we have the pandemic that's hurting everyone. We have the recession and inflation that's hurting everyone. And the dangers of inflation cannot be overstated. So it's really hard to find where inflation ever really helps anyone. So it's very predictable, and it's very predictable that it hurts people. So for instance, there's going to be a lot of you that are going to be cold this winter. And you need to understand this. Your heating bill, if you are using, let's just say, oil for heating, is going to go up at least by 40%. That is the business analytical projection. So we know that at least 40%, and it could be over 50%. So whatever you paid last year for your oil for heating your home is going to be more than that. And projections, I don't know enough about climate to understand how they project this, but it is projected that the winter is going to be 10% colder. So if you're anywhere in the north, especially the northeast, it's going to get cold. And, if we also have the supply chain issue going on, which is, you're probably already seeing it. You're going down aisles in the grocery store every now and then, and there's nothing on the shelves because things aren't coming in to the warehouse. And we have a lower supply chain. So what's happening is we have less and less coming into our country and into our stores in our little communities. And the things that are there are going to be much more expensive. I'm sure you've noticed it already. So think about the average family that's struggling. Maybe they've had one or two people die of COVID in their friends and family circle, somebody's sick, they have hospital bills, and now they also have to worry about the supply chain and also inflation. And this rising inflation is eroding purchasing power, eroding it. And it's only going to get worse. That and the supply chain are only going to get worse. Now, am I saying all of this to scare you? Well, yeah and no. I want you to right now focus on slowly, not going out crazy and panic buying, but slowly. Every time you go to the grocery store, buy some canned goods, buy some rice, buy some pasta, get your vitamins, get the necessities that you think that you're going to need this winter. If you're prone to getting colds or viruses, get medications. Get the things that you think you're going to need, and get them now. While I know that prices seem high now, but I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe that these prices are only going to get worse. And there's something that I want to say about polarization, okay? I know that there's a lot of people right now blaming politicians, blaming political parties, blaming the pro-vaccine, the anti-vaxxers. There's so much polarization. In our country, in the United States, we are very polarized. And honestly, we're very big in propaganda and we don't realize it. For instance, the pep rally of our country is that we care so much about children and families, right? And we're so top in medical care. But the reality is we are number one in maternal and infant deaths during delivery. So that's really different, right? So that's what's happening on the playing field, but the pep rally is all the marketing and press releases that we're hearing regurgitated into the news. So the pep rally and the reality of what's happening on the playing field are two completely different things. So depends on what you're looking at. Are you looking at the field? If you're looking at the field, you have a better idea of what's happening. You may not know why it's happening, but we know it is happening. But if you're only looking at the pep rally, which is certain news sources or whatever, then you're only seeing one view or what people want you to know. And so we can get polarized even there. We can get polarized in so many ways that we become more uncaring. So for instance, I am someone who's vaccinated. And if I had a magic wand, everyone would be vaccinated. Everyone would wear a mask happily and there would be no COVID because I don't like COVID. And anything that I can do to like knock it out, let's do it. However, there's a group of people that are in a minority yet valid in being anti-vax. Do I agree with them? No, not at all. But do I respect them? Absolutely. Because they have their reasons that are valid. I may not agree with those reasons. They may not agree with mine. But if we can all live in harmony, wouldn't that be a great thing? I mean, I have friends and family that are not vaccinated, that are outright anti-vax, who do not wear masks. Do I agree with them? No. Do I find a lot of fault in my mind with what they do or how they live? Yeah, I'll be honest, I do. But will I disrespect them? No. Because by disrespecting someone, and this is why, whether you're in a therapy room having an issue with a family member or at work or out in the world and navigating more publicly, disrespecting someone is never going to change their mind. Disrespecting someone and trying to push them in a corner is never going to make them be on your side. It's only bullying. You know, this whole polarization that we have is ridiculous to me. Just imagine children on a playground, okay? If you're on a playground and you feel like the other person did something to you, what do you tell the teacher? You point your finger and you say, they did it. It wasn't me, they did it. And you know what that other child's doing, or that other group of children? They're pointing their finger at you. No, it wasn't my fault, it's their fault. And what happens? It's just a bickering match. It's an immature bickering match. And that's what it really looks like when I see people politically bickering. I mean, you know what? These people are just, the same immature children, but now they have pot bellies. And so these people are wagging their fingers in each other's faces on podiums, on social networking, and everyone is saying, not my fault. And everyone is blaming a particular president, a particular party, a particular mindset. And while there might be validity to some of their arguments, the blaming doesn't help because it just makes the person who's doing the blaming a victim. And if you're a victim, you're not really being proactive. You're not an advocate by blaming people. You're an advocate by creating facts to back up your story and to intelligently and respectfully convey those facts. Now, I know that there's jerks all over the place, okay? There's going to be people that are just not nice. They're just not kind. And these people, when they're not kind, are going to be saying horrible things, pointing the finger, low blows, and things like that. And that's, you've just got to accept that. But these people, and when I say accept that, I don't mean accept it as a behavior that you should have to deal with. Just accept that there's people that are doing that. But these people are not really that much of a majority. They are a minority within a group. Most people that are in opposition, of different views are really just, they have their views and they're not out to make you feel bad that you don't share their views. So don't let the small little peanut gallery of unhappy people who love to point the finger and blame and polarize make you think that everyone in that group is that way. And here's a reality. Um, these people are not only a minority that are doing it, they like to be a victim and they like to be unhappy. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And honestly, if they're good at what they're doing, if they're good at being loud and having the low blows and all of that, that means they've lived a life of that. They didn't just suddenly get good at being a low denominator human being, okay? They've practiced it. And I feel that some of the people that are either pro or anti-vaccine that are doing the low blows and really being mean to people are, and I'm just using that as one example, these are people that were always unhappy. They were always struggling. They were always blaming people. And this is just a really good excuse for them to maybe get attention for being a low denominator person. And they think they're cool and witty by doing it. And unfortunately, they're always going to have some people that are, kumbayaing them along because they're also miserable. And sometimes miserable people attract miserable people. That's kind of a thing. So in general, my whole point of this is I don't want you to feel that the polarization is helping anyone. Instead of seeing, for instance, someone who is anti-vax, they got fired from their job. Instead of saying, good for you, I don't agree with what you're doing, and you deserve to be jobless and suffering. Instead of that, why not say, you know what, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I feel bad that you got let go of a job, a career, and I feel bad that you feel so strongly in your conviction that it was worth it for you to lose your income and your 401k and your health insurance. And I feel bad for you. So maybe I don't agree that you should get 6 months of unemployment, but I don't agree that you should get no unemployment. I think you should maybe have 6 weeks to maybe get on your feet. And there's other types of jobs that you might want to do. And I hope that you succeed. And while I don't agree with you, I hope that you at least respect other people and wear a mask around other people, maybe, and who do fear for viral overload. And maybe that would be helpful. So, and this is for both people. This is also for the anti-vax person who, I get it. You made a stand, and regardless of whether you have your job or not, like, are you able to, around people that truly are worried, are you able to be compassionate enough to wear a mask, or are you going to see it as a power thing? So a lot of times it really comes down to, are you willing to be compassionate, to see other people's view and to have a heart? Or do you see everything as a big game where you're on a playground and you're playing kickball and you want to point the finger and you want to be right and you don't want any accountability? Because every polarized area is doing this. And I think that by having a middle ground approach is always going to be balanced and going to be more advantageous for our overall health and our overall economic space. Because polarized countries are broken countries, and broken countries cannot be successful because they're broken. They're worried about fighting with each other and not building each other up. And only when we all build each other up, whether it's in a family unit or in a country, do we actually see a lot of success. So this entire podcast was more about really talking about the supply chain and inflation, but bringing in the emotions of what this can do to you and why it might be happening. And so you need to remember that inflation is the way that the government is actually getting money. And also it's going to only be solved by a recession that will hurt everyone. So even some people right now that are feeling like, oh, this is great, I got a great deal on my house. Well, yeah, but your community is falling apart. And you may be struggling in the future to find, to heat that house. So we all are going to have to start to think about other people and have compassion and also take care of ourselves and take accountability and be responsible, because it is up to you right now to make sure that you have food for the winter, that you have heat for the winter, that your children are not cold, that your children are supported, and that your family, friends, and your neighbors all are a part of a quilt that you are weaving with compassion. Now, I know all of that doesn't sound like a whole lot of finance, but it really does come down to it, because finance, whether it's inflation or purchasing a new pair of shoes or buying the best tires for your car, all come down in a way to emotion And sometimes it's necessity, but even the necessities are coming down to some type of emotion directing your purchases, and also directing the government, directing how we view the pandemic, how we view healthcare, how we view our neighbors, friends, and family, even when we don't agree with them. So your ability to be compassionate and bend is probably going to be a good denominator on how you're going to navigate this winter and the inflation and the supply chain issues that we're having, but also the people around you. We need to look at the people around you. And I want you right now to take a good look at the people around you and where are you going with these people? Like, what are they bringing to the table? So, on that note, if you are feeling anxious, check out my book, How to Heal Financial Anxiety. I have many ways for you, over 60 ways for you to dive into some neuroscience activities to help you get out of anxiety and get into a state of balance, save money, and be more emotionally and fiscally healthy. All right, I'll talk to you soon.